Obviously, that came from the show The Chosen, and if I just want to encourage you, if you have not watched that yet, that's why I love this clip, and I'm going to show it each time until we're finished with the Beatitudes, because it gets an ingrained memory in us of maybe a picture of the relationship and the humanity of Jesus and the friendship that they had with him, the disciples had with him, that he wants to have with you also. Amen? Amen. Well, welcome to Zion Church this morning, and we're going to dive right into Matthew, and we're also going to look in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you have your handy-dandy Bibles with you, we're going to talk this morning about blessed are those who hunger and thirst. And this morning, when we're finished, we are going to have communion together and enjoy that. But I just want to say I'm glad to see every single one of you here. And I believe that if you're here today, it's not by accident, because I really believe that God's going to do a deep work in us. And this is going to be life-changing for someone. And it can be for every single one of us. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Hunger and thirst. I think this is a great picture of this principle, hunger and thirst, because I like food. How many of you out there like food this morning? Well, some of you like food. Some of you, I guess you don't eat. Well, I don't know, but I'm kind of a foodie. I like food. I like all kinds of food. Now, I have a few rules about food, like I don't eat internal organs. Some of you will laugh at me because I don't eat internal organs or things like that, weird things. I don't like raw things like sushi or raw fish or that kind of thing. But other than that, I'm pretty open. I'm not that picky of an eater, and I love food. In fact, I've got all kinds of favorite places to go. And I wonder if you're ever like me and you go to a full refrigerator and you open it up. Have you ever seen that full refrigerator and you're hungry for something, but you're not quite sure what it is? And you just stand there with an open refrigerator and all that cold air is just pouring out. And you're just staring at all this food that you just went and bought, right? And you put it in there because you thought you wanted it, but now you're standing there and you know you're hungry, but it's just not quite the right thing there. So you're hungry for everything, but hungry for nothing at the same time. Just not knowing what to eat. Or maybe you're like me, you go to a new place where you've never been. You're like, well, I don't know what to pick because there's so many options here. Or one of my favorite places is Cheesecake Factory. Do I have any Cheesecake Factory lovers? Yeah. See, hands went up faster over that question than any other question I've ever asked in this church. So is great. But you know what? They've got 80,000 different options on that menu. Usually, that's a cardinal sin for restaurants. You have too many things on the menu, it just like sinks you. But they have mastered that, and every single one of them is good. Even the things I wouldn't normally eat are good. I mean, it is like so many good choices. And how do you choose which cheesecake even? I mean, it's just like they are good. But sometimes you go and you eat until you're satisfied and there's just something missing. And it reminds me of Bono and U2. Any U2 fans here? A few? And so maybe you can help me sing. And you walk away singing this song. You know what I'm going to sing, right? And I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Yeah, everybody together. And I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And so many people in the world today are doing that very thing. We are hungry for something, are we not? There's a void in our soul and we're hungry and we're trying to fill it. And Jesus himself said, blessed, not just another word for this word blessed is happy, but not happy in the worldly sense, but very content, fully fulfilled, In your heart and soul are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. The Living Bible says it like this: happy are those who long to be just and good, for they shall be completely satisfied. Completely satisfied. Now, how many of you have eaten that perfect favorite meal and you walked away from the table completely satisfied, like that was exactly the right thing, exactly the right amount? I'm satisfied. I didn't overdo it. I didn't underdo it. I was just like, it's good. That's what it's like when you seek out the justness and the goodness of God, being hungry. Another version says, those who want to do right more than anything else are happy, because God will fully satisfy them. God will fully satisfy them. I wonder how many of us today are really hungry and thirsty for the righteousness of God. Righteousness is a theological kind of churchy term that we use in the Bible, and it comes from the Bible, but really it's nothing less than describing being in right standing before God. Being right standing before God. We are hungry and we're thirsty to live this life rightly, to do what God has asked us to do to please Him rather than ourselves. And yet so many, even people who are in the church across the world today, they get just enough of Jesus to taste, but they don't really get satisfied with the fullness and the rightness of God. And we're going to talk about that this morning a little bit more in depth as we get to it. But I want to encourage us today that even Solomon, who was considered the wisest man on the planet, the most wealthy man on the planet even. He was the king of Israel, and he had more wealth than any other person, nation group, anything, more than any other king or queen. And in fact, the Queen of Sheba came to visit him to revel in all of the glory of all of his wealth and to see what it was like to be Solomon. And he wrote much of the Proverbs. Wisdom just flowed out of him. It was the gift and the blessing of God. But yet, he also then wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, the next book. And really, if you go read it, it's really a depressing book. He writes all of his depressing things and the burdens. And in fact, let me just give you a taste here. He starts out in Ecclesiastes 1:18 saying, "For with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and the more knowledge, the more grief." Now, how encouraging is that? The smarter you get, the worse life is. We'll talk about why he says that here in just a minute. Of making the many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. I don't know about you, but when I study a lot or think a lot and I sit in front of the computer, I get headaches. I literally get headaches from having to think, because it's intense, like learning, studying, and making sure you get things right. But he's just like the rest of the world in this sense. He's like, okay, I'm going to make something of myself, and so I'm going to pursue wisdom and knowledge and being smart, but really the more knowledge I get, the more grief that comes with it, and the more I study, I'm wearying myself. And then in chapter 2, verse 10, he goes on to say, "I denied myself nothing that my eyes desired, and I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all of my labor, and this was the reward for my toil. Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun." Now, this isn't very encouraging to me because we all like to work hard and we all like to celebrate in the bounty or the fruits of our labors and be proud of what we've done. But here is the most successful man in the world, in history, more wealth, more accumulation than anybody else. And he's saying, like, the more that I have done, I realize that it is nothing. It's just like out in the wind. And I am burdened by it. I haven't gained a thing. Verse 17, so I hated life because the work that was done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it's meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. You ever heard the phrase, you can't take it with you? Every one of us have heard that phrase, and we've been told that, well, you can amass whatever you want, but you surely can't take it with you. But so many of us, now he's not saying it's wrong to have things or to accomplish things or to do things, but so many people in the world today, we build our lives on what we've done rather than who can do them through us. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Blessed. It's like the man or the woman who builds their life on their career or builds their life on amassing wealth. We can do that all the time and all for however long, and we realize, though, that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how we have lived our life for God. Ecclesiastes 5:10, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume it. And what benefit are they that to the owners except to feast their eyes on them? Now again, he's not saying that it's wrong to have things or to build your life upon this earth, because we also learned that a wise man prepares and takes care of his family. Right? Someone who does not take care of his family is worse than an infidel, worse than an unbeliever. So these are not in contrary to one another. What he's saying is that when that becomes our God and that's what we pursue above him, then we are left empty, we are left wanting. It's like standing in front of the proverbial refrigerator feeling like, what do I eat next? Because I am not satisfied. Amen? Chapter 4 and verse 8, he says, there was a man all alone, and he's speaking of himself here. Neither had son nor brother, there was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. How could he not be content with his wealth when he already had more than anybody else on the planet at that time? I mean, you want to talk about the term filthy rich? I mean, there was no way to even compare to the wealth of this king. And yet he's saying, with all the people around me, with all of the people in my kingdom, with all of the people in my palace, with all of the people and my advisors and my armies and my people and even all of my wives. You notice in 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 3 says he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. I mean, like, this guy was smart in some ways, but crazy in other. I mean, how do you have 1,000 women to take care of, right? But yet, he's saying, with all of these people around me, I am still lonely. I'm all alone because things are out of priority in my life. And you walk through this book of Ecclesiastes and you see the depression and you see the angst and you see the laboring of his spirit as he is reviewing his life in the rearview mirror, so to speak, of where he's come. He's amassed all of these things. He's on top of the world. There is nothing left to get. He has conquered it all, and yet he feels empty inside. Finally, at this short little book in chapter 12, he says, this is the last and final word. Fear God. Now, let me stop right there. Fear God. They understood the word fear back then differently than we do now. He's not talking about afraid like you're afraid of getting hit by a freight train if you're sitting on the train tracks, right? Because God is not an angry God at us. Remember, the wrath of sin has been fulfilled by the blood of Jesus Christ if you're a Christ follower. The wrath of God comes upon sin, but if you're a Christ follower forgiven of your sins, your sin is washed away. You're made brand new. He's not an angry God at you in your imperfection. He's a loving God that wants to transform us and make us whole. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after His righteousness, for they shall be filled and content and blessed. And you see this process of him. This fear, this Hebrew word means to have such a reverent awe and honor of God. It's another word for this is deep worship and respect, that just like going before an earthly king only, this is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You come in with a bent posture and you're down low and you're worshipful, so thankful for what He has done for you that you want to do what is pleasing for Him. Your desires have changed. Your desires are to make Him pleased with you. Not because He's a God of rules and laws and bylaws and do's and don'ts, but because He's a God who loved us first. And because He first loved us, we love Him back with our obedience and our reverence and our worship. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after being right before God, doing the right thing before God, loving Him in the right way, and that comes out practically even in our lives working with each other, right? It means that we just because He forgave us first, we can forgive other people. We can forgive our spouse. We can forgive our coworker. We can forgive our child, or we can forgive somebody even we don't know that has harmed us, and they don't deserve it. You're right. They may not even deserve it, but because of the love of Jesus, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after doing the right thing for God, doing the right thing before God, because they will be then satisfied. And you don't have to walk away from God's refrigerator empty and longing and wanting and wishing you had eaten the right thing, because you have tasted and seen that the Lord, He is good. He is a good, good God. So fear God, do what He tells you. This is the conclusion of Solomon at the end of this book. After everything, he's accomplished everything, he has all of this wealth, he has everything. He's like, okay, I am going to break it down to you. This is it. Fear God, do what He tells you, and that's it. I mean, this is the simplest scripture in all of the Bible. Fear God, do what He tells you, and that's it. Eventually, God will bring everything that we do out into the open and judge it according to its hidden intent, whether it's good or evil. I'm going to quote St. Augustine here, who said, "Thou hast formed us for Thyself, and our hearts are restless till they find rest in Thee." That's the searching and the hungering that we're talking about. So many of us are searching and hungering even within the church, even within the fold of what we call Christianity. So many people are still hungering and thirsting for contentment, hungering and thirsting for fulfillment, hungering and thirsting for that which we don't have. And you know what He's saying here? I recognize that you formed me for yourself. It's not for myself. It's not for my purpose. It's not for fulfilling my dreams. Yeah, I might have dreams, but I got to make sure that those dreams are the dreams given by God for me. And usually, those natural things that come up within us, they're naturally, God put them in us. And so, therefore, that's good. But we're not living from a selfish standpoint of just doing our own thing. God, you created me for your pleasure, for your doing, for your worship. That's why you created me, and that's how I'm going to live. And our hearts are restless. My heart is restless, and it's not going to be satisfied until I find rest in you. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be completely satisfied. Proverbs 21:21 says it like this: whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. So many times we're seeking out the things that we think that we want out of life, and we get the cart before the horse, because he's saying, pursue righteousness, pursue your relationship with God first, and these things. In fact, he said it, right? He said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all of these other things that you think you need, you think you want, you think you desire, your hopes and dreams and everything, they're going to be added to you, but they're the cart. The horse that drives your life should be seeking after the righteousness, the relationship with God. I had a great conversation with Doug before church this morning. It was pretty early before anybody else got here, and we were talking about relationship with God and how his parents grew up religious, but not really knowing God. But then he, as a college student, was led to the Lord by his calculus professor. His calculus professor, and just a little side note, this was not intended to be said, but just a little side note. This is where you understand that we are all called to be ministers of the gospel in our realm, no matter where you are. You are not a calculus professor, a secretary, an HR person, a business owner. You are a minister of the gospel who is using that plane or that platform to share your faith, to share your life. You are called to be a minister of the gospel first, and everything else you do is in a vehicle for glorifying God. Amen? I just want to drive that home. Your calling to do whatever you're doing is not secondary to what I do up here. It's not secondary to some big name that's out there reaching thousands of people. It's not about the number of people you reach. It's about your faithfulness to have relationship with God and share that relationship with other people. Right? You could be pouring concrete, and yet your lifestyle is demonstrated to the other employees, or it's demonstrated to your clients, and you might not have as much time as I do on a Sunday morning to share a whole message, but you do have opportunities that God brings to you, right? You might be working, you might be retired, it doesn't matter, but whatever season of life you're in, you're a minister of the gospel first. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things shall be added unto you. Your position and your station in life is just as important as anybody else's, because you are a minister of Jesus. I hope you get that in your heart today, wherever you're at. He can use you. He can use you. I know Jim, he's a busybody in a good way. In a good way. He's not going around gossiping or talking about people. He's going around talking about Jesus and inviting people, and he touches people's lives. And wherever he goes, he's doing things out of love and out of service, and he's touching. You hear what I'm saying? Every one of us, wherever you're at, some of you work in hospitals and you're loving people. You might have restraints over what you can and can't do, but when you get that opportunity and the door's cracked open the least little bit, you can insert the love of Jesus. You can insert an encouraging word. You can insert hope. Whatever it is, don't measure things based on what you think the outcome should be. Measure things based on your relationship with God and your willingness to serve. Amen? Whoever pursues righteousness, that's the cart in front of, that's the horse in front of the cart. You're going to find life, prosperity, and honor. So I have a couple of reasons that I'm going to share with you, reasons why we don't pursue righteousness, or we don't find that thing, we don't get filled up with the right things. And the first thing is we fill up on the wrong things. Okay? We fill up on the wrong things. Now, maybe some of you guys can relate. So you're hungry, and this is why we've chosen not to buy certain things in our house, because I'll tell you, if there's a bag of chips, let me just say, there's not going to be a bag of chips. I don't even have to be hungry to eat chips. You hear what I'm saying? Like, I know you go to a Mexican restaurant and they give you the chips and salsa to fill you up so you feel like that, you know, you got your money's worth, and then they bring you. I tell you what, I will eat the chips and salsa until they bring the food and be full and like, well, I don't know why I ordered, but then I will still eat the food anyway. I love chips, so I don't buy chips in my house. But have you ever done that? You know, that's why your mama always said, don't spoil your dinner. Don't eat that right now. Dinner's almost done, right? Because we will fill up on the chips and the cookies and the things, and we're like, oh, I'm too full. I'm too full. You might have your favorite dinner on the table, but you're not hungry anymore because you filled up on the wrong things. And then later you might get a stomach ache, or later you're hungrier than ever because it didn't stick with you because you didn't eat the right food, and you wonder, why am I still hungry? Because I just ate all that, and now dinner's gone and it's all put away, or there's none left. Everybody else ate it. Do you hear what I'm saying? And we fill up with the wrong things. How many of you ever stopped by and you get gas at Casey's and you see the potato chips and the beef jerky that's there, and that clogs your arteries with every bite, and those little pizzas? And you fill up and you think, ooh, that was good, but then you feel kind of like, bleh. We fill up on the wrong things, and we wonder why we have trouble later. Well, so many times in our own life, that's what we do. We fill up on the wrong things, trying to fill that void in our soul. Hebrews 11:25, speaking of Moses, said that Moses chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. You see, he had position. He had an open door. He had opportunity to live a life. He could have been a playboy. He could have enjoyed all of the wealth and the riches of Egypt. He could have done anything he wanted. But he chose on purpose to be disciplined. He chose to separate himself. He chose to take the anguish of the people and suffer alongside the people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. Because that's what it is. Sin is trying to fill the emptiness with something that tastes good, that feels good for a moment, but then it leaves you wanting. It leaves you hungry. It leaves you thirsty. Isaiah 55, 1 and 2. The Lord says, all you who are thirsty, come and drink. Those of you who do not have any money, come, buy, eat. Come and buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why spend your money on something that is not real food? Why work for something that doesn't really satisfy you? Listen closely to me, and you will eat what is good. Your soul will enjoy the rich food that satisfies. He's saying here, prophetically and ahead of his time, there is something that satisfies beyond everything else, and that is a right relationship with God. Relationship, not a right religion, not a right church attendance record, not a right church, not a right religious process. He's saying a relationship with God, a real relationship with the Savior of all of humanity, Jesus Christ. One where you have a friendship, where you have an honest dialogue, where you have repentance of sin, that is turning and walking away from the old life, walking away from the sin that so easily besets us, walking away from the things that are not just and right because we choose Jesus instead of that which is easy, instead of that which is pleasing for the moment, but yet the thing that is right. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after a right relationship with God. So we fill up on the wrong things. And then secondly, sometimes it's just that we have never really experienced the goodness of God. We've never really experienced the goodness of God. Now, while I'm a foodie and I like great food, I have this little barrier in my head that I think certain things should not be good, so therefore I'm afraid to try. Right? I'm afraid to try. And then my wife, she's adventurous, and she'll order something, and I'm like, man, I should have ordered that. Right? I should have ordered that. But sometimes, because we've not experienced it, we don't really know the true goodness of it. I remember one time we went to, this has backfired me on occasion. I have ordered things that truly were not good. I don't like sauerkraut, and I ordered a Reuben. Okay. We were at Rainforest Cafe. Rainforest Cafe in Florida. And I don't know what possessed me to order it, because if I had known what it was, I would not have ordered it. But clearly I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was fried, and I like fried, like all things fried. Anybody here? I like all things fried. If you want me to eat something I don't know what it is, fry it, and I'll probably try it. I like all things fried. Well, I ordered calamari. Anybody know what calamari is? Yeah. Fried clams. And it was good. Had an interesting rubbery texture. I'm a texture person, so like it's got to be the right texture. If it's the wrong texture, I'm just like, I don't care what it tastes like. But somehow I ended up liking it, and then afterwards I asked, what is this? And the waiter, waitress, I don't even remember who took care of us. It was a while back. But they're like, well, it's fried. Is it clams or oysters? Squid? Okay, well, we're getting worse as we go down this road. Squid. Oh my goodness, no wonder. I would never. I don't like creatures from the sea. Right? I like, they're weird. It's like eating aliens. You know, there's this big alien thing going around in the news lately. I saw this meme of these Cajuns in Louisiana, and they standing there with shotguns, and they had a couple of aliens strapped over them, and they said, well, I don't know what they are, but there's enough meat on here to make some gumbo. And then the caption underneath said, why UFOs never land in Louisiana. But you see, I didn't know what it was, and I tasted it, and I didn't know that it was good, but it was good. But so many times where people in our culture are really afraid of God, afraid in the sense of real fear. They think God's a mean God, but God's a good God, and He wants to love you, and He wants to make you right, and He wants to prosper you and bless you. And I want you to understand, Psalm 34:8, I already said it, but you can highlight it in your notes that I gave you this morning. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in Him. Paul said in Ephesians 3:18, and I'm wrapping up here as our musicians come, I pray that you may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp, take a hold of how wide and how long and how deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the measure of all of the fullness of God. You see, righteousness is not some weird thing. It just means right standing with God. And so the good news is that God makes people right with Himself. He makes you right with Himself. Romans 3:25, we are made right with God when we believe that Jesus shed His blood, sacrificing His life for us. And since that we've been made right in God's sight by the blood of Christ, He will certainly save us from God's condemnation. For since our friendship, you see there that word friendship, with God was restored by the death of His Son, while we were still enemies, we will certainly be saved through the life of His Son. So now we can rejoice in our wonderful new relationship with God, because our Lord Jesus Christ has made us friends with God. Gentlemen, if you'll come, we're going to take communion this morning. And they're going to serve you with the bread and the cup representing the body and the blood of Jesus. And we're going to take it together. But while they're serving you, I want you to listen carefully. You see, we're made right with God by coming into relationship with God, and we're also made right with right living here on earth. You see, sometimes we think, well, all I have to do is say a prayer and I'm good, I'm in, and then I can just live any old way I want to. But no, He's asked us, as our response of love to Him, part of our righteousness is choosing right living before Him. Proverbs 14:12 says, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. We have right living on earth by pursuing the lifestyle that God intends. That same Solomon that wrote the book of Ecclesiastes said, in the way of righteousness there is life. Along that path is immortality. Jesus Himself said, you don't have to wait any longer or look any further than me. You don't have to wait any longer or look any further. Here I am. I'm Jesus. Here I am. Would you stand with me today?